Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly shir on the Zohar HaKadosh, connecting and unifying the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu Raya Mehemno with the Torah of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Butzina de Nahira, to be Megala, the koyach of the Gulgalta, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's descending from above to below, which is the secret of Teres Moshe, with the Butzina, which is the secret of the vessels that is coming from below to above, which is the secret of Rabbi Shimon, and to be Mechaber the two of them to reveal the Torah of Mashiach Tzidkenu Be'ezras Hashem, and the secret of Bahai Safra Yafkin Megalusa, that through this book itself you will encounter the secret of Geula. And entering into a new Sefer, entering into the Sefer of Bamidbar, we're going to encounter the illumination and the healing power of the Zohar HaKadosh to give us the strength to wander through the time period that is being elicited and awoken through the Parshios themselves. As we know, the Baal HaTanya said a person has to live with the times, which means to say that it's not just that I have to find my current life in the Parsha itself and find the relevancy of the Parsha to my life, but rather the things that are taking place in my life. If I'm trying to understand the framework in which my life is going, let me look at the Parsha, let me see what's happening in the Parsha so that I can understand why the narrative of my life is going in a certain way, because it's an illumination and reflection of the Parsha itself. The Ganda Oraisa, the garden of the Torah, the 53 Parshios of the Torah HaKadosha, is a reality that we live in as much as it's a reality that we try and bring into our own minds. As the Baal HaTanya describes, there's a yichud nifla when it comes to our relationship with the Torah. On the one hand, we are saturated by it, and on the other hand, it surrounds us. It fills us and it surrounds us. At the one point, my mind is surrounding the Torah. At the other point, the Torah is surrounding my mind. So yes, we're trying to reveal the Torah within our lives, but we're also trying to find our lives within the Torah. And so when we come to the book of Bamidbar, a book of wandering, a book of moving from here to there without any particular destination, but rather part and parcel of the 42 journeys that each and every person goes through, that Klal Yisrael goes through, represented in the Shem Membeis and the secret of the 42-letter name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the movements from below to above. When we find ourselves in the wandering nature of the midbar, we have to be able to identify that place within ourselves. And if the self finds itself wandering, if the self finds itself wandering aimlessly or theoretically aimlessly, it's not to come to a place of hopelessness, but rather it's coming to learn the secret of what Bamidbar is teaching us, which is that Alpi Hashem Yisu, that it's the secret of moving and stopping in accordance with Hashem. Even the boredom, even the aimless wandering, the seemingly aimless wandering of the midbar experience of a person's life, which we see rectified already in the aimless wandering Kavyachol of the Chavraya Kadisha in the Zohar Kadosh, which will ultimately bring about the aimless wandering of Gan Eden, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ataya lachem began Eden, I will stroll with you in Gan Eden. A stroll is an aimless walking. It's a walking for the sake of walking. It doesn't have a destination that it's rushing to, because each and every step is the destination. So we're transforming ourselves from the exilic wandering of the midbar to the wandering of holiness that is expressed in the Zohar, the wandering with friends, which will then bring us to a place of wandering with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we find ourselves in the wandering state of mind that we find ourselves in, due to the fact that we're entering into Parshas Bamidbar, we can look towards the Zohar HaKadosh to illuminate a path for us. That being said, I looked at two Makoros in the Zohar, and they're both incredibly, incredibly beautiful, and they're both really important, and they're both therapeutic in their import. And so we'll start with the first one, and we'll see, where we're at after we go through the first one, and then we'll go to the second Nakuda in the Zohar Kadosh. But this is in the Sefer Bamidbar. This is the first teaching in the Zohar Kadosh in the Sefer Bamidbar. Pasuk says, V'daber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai ba'ol moed. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert of Sinai, in the appointment tent and the Ohel Moed, in the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was regularly encountering Moshe Rabbeinu, or Moshe Rabbeinu was encountering HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Abba Pasach, Rav Abba opens up. And the nature of Rav Abba was the scribe. Rav Abba was the one who wrote the Zohar Kadosh, because he comes from a place of Chachma. Chachma, in relationship to the light of Keser, is a concealment. It is a yesh me'ayin. And the capacity to have a chachma of how to convey an idea so that it can be grasped by way of the student who does not understand the original power of the idea is the secret of the chachma of Reb Abba, the scribe, the one who is capable of being mitzamsem the ideas of Rabbi Shimon, and the capacity of drawing them down into a bite-sized, manageable way of Rabbi Abba's koyach to give over to the Talmidim. The secret was that it was given over to Rabbi Abba specifically because Rabbi Abba had an understanding of the general sense, but understood what he couldn't understand. And that's the chachma, knowing how to minimize something, knowing how to make it smaller and bite-sized. So that's going to be the first eitzah that we have when we're entering into a midbar. We have to attach ourselves to Rabbi Abba. We have to attach ourselves to the light of chachma. The light of chachma is the ability to see everything in one fell swoop and to know how to draw down that idea that I've grasped that no one else can grasp, and how to bring it down to people who can't grasp it. That's the secret of Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba Pasach, Rabbi Abba opens up. V'yivra Elohim Adam b'tzalmo. Pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the individual in his image. B'tzalmo, Haikra Itmar. This pasuk from Maisa Bereshis, why are we starting? Why are we talking about Bereshis when we find ourselves Bamidbar? Because of the secret of Rav Abba Pasach. Rav Abba knows you have to go back to the psicha of everything. Bereshis bara Elohim. Everything is always about going back to the psicha, going back to the beginning, going back to the source of things, with the hakara that the Shirish HaSharashim, the source of all sources, is always available, even when all it seems that exists is the branches of all branches. That hidden within the very recesses of the branch itself is the light of the source. And that's the secret of going back to the psicha. Rabbi Shimon Pasach picha v'ya'iru dvarecha. That secret of a psicha chadasha, of a new opening. This is why Rabbi Shimon darshaned the word Bereisha 70 times, because the light of Rabbi Shimon is the light of a psicha. And so the need is to return back to Bereshis, so that we can always start again. We find ourselves at the precipice of wandering into the desert. First and foremost, reattach yourself to the light of creation. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the individual in his image. We already learned this pasuk. We already discussed this pasuk. But again, in the light of the Zohar, the fact that it's been discussed before doesn't mean that it can't be discussed again. And the fact that it's being discussed again doesn't mean there was a problem with what was discussed before. Ba'ahava, come and see. B'shaisa debar HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'adam. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the individual, created human beings, avid le b'diyukne di'iloi v'tatoi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the human being as a split thing. The human being is split through. Part of the individual is oriented towards that which exists upward, and part of the individual is oriented towards that which exists below. We've spoken about the torn nature of the soul, the split nature of the Nefesh Elikus and the Nefesh Bahamis, the Adam 1, the Adam 2. All of the different elements that a person experiences. The tornness is because the human being is a composite of a dual relationship, one that is rooted above and one that is rooted below. Kalil mikule, and there was a unification of all of them, the opposites of above and below, the nefesh and the guf. Those opposites are unified within the pella, the wonder that is the human being, and the secret of mafli la'asos. The have nuhure nahir me saifa ilam ad saifa alma, and the light of the human being in that orientation of the connectivity of above and below was a light that can see from one end of the world to the other end. We spoke about this or haganus, this possibility that remains hidden within the recesses of the mind, very, very slightly wedged between that butzina, which is the vessel that's receiving, and the golgalta, which is the ore that's being mashpia, rests the kruma da avira, that partition of mind and subjectivity that needs to be refined, to be revealed, to have been part and parcel of the or haganus all along. But before that, it was just the secretion of the or haganus that was hidden away in that very delicate place of the mind. What existed was that Adam Arishon, the Metzias of Adam, which was a connection between above and below, the connectivity between opposites, had the capacity of grasping and seeing from one end of the world to the other end of the world. One end means the concealment, one end means the revelation, one end means above, one end means below. It's Omek Tachas and Omek Rom, like the Sefer Yetzirah says, the depths of the below and the depths of above. V'havei dachlin kaime kule. And everything else in reality was afraid. There was a fear that was in the face of the human being because of the deep power revealed in the connectivity and the Pella Elyon of the capacity to unify above and below, to live within that space of opposites. The Afagav, the Ha'ukma, and even though we've learned this already, that the human being is composed of a dual orientation, we're a unified thing, but this unified thing gets expressed in the dance between the opposites of the self, which is the Ratzav Veshov, the running above and the running below, and they're both operant at the same time. The Yitzhar Tov and Yitzhar Hara, Vayitzar Sa'adam. It's two things. It seems to be a doubled thing, a connection between above and below. And even though we've taught this already, the entire notion of the Zohar Kadosh is that even though we learned this already, let's learn it again. Even though we've learned this already, let's learn it again. Why? Because the fact that we learned it already doesn't mean that we can't learn it again. And the fact that we can learn it again doesn't mean that we didn't learn it already. Both are true. I'm always coming to reveal more and more of what was previously concealed. But the fact that there was things previously concealed does not negate the value of that which was previously revealed, because each thing stands in its own particular orientation to revelation and concealment at that particular moment. And if the previous time that we interpreted this pasuk, so the level that we were standing on, the level of what you felt was revelation was real, now that level of revelation is revealed to have just been a level of concealment in relationship to the next level. So now we can learn the pasuk again. It's a psicha chadasha. It's a new beginning that is not built upon the destruction of the previous moment, but rather the secret of the incremental growth of the shir pashat, kafel, meshulish, meruba, the aleph, beis, gimel, beis, gimel, daled. So even though we've learned it before, a person has to look. Don't read it again. Look at it again. Istakla, the istaklas of Chachma, of Rav Abba, the Einei HaChachma, the wisdom of the ability to see things anew, the Tachazi of the Zohar Kadosh. Is the istakla be? You have to look into the pasuk. V'yivra Elohim es ha'adam b'tzalmo b'tzelem Elohim baroso. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the individual in his image. In the image of God, he created him. This split language, again, this doubled language, implying that there's a split, torn nature to the individual. Kivin de Amar b'tzalmoi, since the pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us in his image, my b'tzelem Elohim baroso. What does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created him in the image of God? Elavadai train dargin the klilin docher v'nukva chad ledocher v'chad lenukva. But rather, what is obvious is that these two levels that are being described in the pasuk, the tselem and the tselem Elohim, are representative of two elements. The two elements which are the masculine principle and the feminine principle, both of which obviously exist both within feminine as well as masculine, as the Zohar is going to speak about. Because in holiness, everything is contained with everything, and everything is composed of a singular unity. Elevade train dargan deklilin. There's two elements to the human being. There's two elements that make up the individual. Dachar v'nukva, the masculine desire to express, which is oriented to above, and the feminine quality of receptivity, which is oriented to below. That unity between Shemayim and Aretz. Chad ledachar, the tselem goes to the dachar, v'chad lenukva, and the tselem Elohim goes to the nukva. This is what we know of as the tselem and the demus. The tselem and the demus are the two elements that compose the self. It's the body itself, it's the emptiness of the body in its deficiency, in its fullness, but nevertheless deficient, because it's like every other element of Teva. That's the demus, and the tselem is the light of Ruchnius. It's the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara that animate the body itself to reveal to us that we're more than just the body. That yichud of the tselem and the demus, the dachar and the nukva, the nefesh, or the neshama and the guf, are represented to in the pasuk of Tselem and Tselem Elokim, because the individual at this point was split, but there was a unity between those split parts. Ubegin kach. And as a result of the fact that there's a splitness, that there's these two, there's the dachar and there's the nekeva as well, again, all existing within the self, we're describing the orientation of self prior to the Chet of Adam HaRishon, which is when the self contained its inherent feminine counterpart within it, and the feminine contained its inherent masculine counterpart within it. It wasn't a split thing, and so it was an inner relationship rather than an externalized intersubjective relationship. Begin kach, as a result of this, du partsufim have. This is the thing that it means. This is what it means when it says that Adam HaRishon was never du partsufim, that there were two orientations, there were two partsufim, there was an orientation above and an orientation below. There was an orientation of panim that was oriented towards Shemayim, the best parts of ourself, that one was sent upwards into the flights of spiritual connectivity, the desire towards bittul and connectivity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a softening and a weakening of this worldly experience. Then there's the guf, that's Moshech, a person down here for the Avodas Hashem that needs to be done down here in the Dir B'Tachtonim and the Birurim and the heavy work of Bina. The human being is composed of both a Chachma and a Bina, of a Chachma, which is the Shemayim that wants to go upwards, that Selim, that Dachar, that orientation towards the masculine tendency of things, and there's also the Bina, there's the Dmus, there's the secret of concealment, and there's the secret of being torn and drawn down back to this worldliness. And this is why Adam HaRishon functioned in a place of balance. The parts were in their right place. The unity between above and below were functioning as they should. V'chachmasa istakalta minei v'lo yave mistakel ella. I'm sorry. V'ksiv zachar v'nekeva bara osam. Ubegin kach, and as a result of this, du partsufim have vadai. This is what it means that Adam HaRishon was created with du partsufim, these two levels, unified. my orientation above and my orientation below. The Sefer Dekar on the end of the pasuk, Oichiach, it comes to prove what we're trying to say. Dechsiv Zachar v'Nekeva bara'isam v'Chliel havei mikol sitrei, that the individual is composed with a masculine and a feminine principle, that there's the principle of expressivity and there's the principle of receptivity, the impulse to move outwards and the impulse to move inwards, the orientation towards sharing and the orientation towards cultivating. Both of those, the or and the kli, existed within Adam Arishon, and there was a clear connectivity between above and below. It wasn't a seamless unity where everything was above or everything was below, but rather it was everything is above and everything is below. Because when it comes to our grasp of unity, when we even talk about the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what we see is immediately a split thing. We see Yichud Ilah and Yichud Tata, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod. How could it be that even when talking about unity itself, our immediate orientation is to see a split way of grasping that unity to the degree that there's a Yichud Ilah and a Yichud Tata? Elama, Achas Dibra Elokim Shtayim Zu Shamati. The Iker Zach is that Hashem spoke once, but as a human being, I have to hear it twice. Yes, I'm a singular thing, but I'm composed in my orientation of a Yetzer Hara and a Yetzer Tov. Everything appears to be split so that the human mind can then mend it back together, which is the work of Yichudim, of mending back together what appears to have been previously unified and now split apart, and now in a relationship with itself, and our need to be miyached those things. So prior to the Chet of Adam HaRishon, there was a Dachar and a Nukva, there was a masculine and a feminine principle, a Shemayim and an Aretz, a good enough and a desire to be better, operating at once. And that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created them. And at that point, the individual was whole from all sides. There was a unity between opposites, and the oppositional unity that comes about when opposites form together to reveal the whole that can't be revealed without them. Ve'afal gav dinuk ve'achidas besitre. And this is mamish, a very important point. And even though it seemingly implies here that it's the feminine principle that was contained within the masculine principle, that Chava existed within Adam, and that the Shamayim had room to make for the Aretz, as if the Iker Zach is Shamayim, or the Iker thing is Adam Arishon, and the Nekeva and Aretz were only secondary. Ha hi nami klila me train citrin mehave shlim bekula v'have mistaka b'chachmas la'elu v'tata. The other side, the Nukva, was also filled from all sides, meaning to say it also had a masculine side, and she also had the capacity to be completely fulfilled and the capacity to have the chachma of above and below. Don't think over here in the natural hierarchy of masculine and feminine, of expression and reception, that masculine is always going to overtake and feminine is always going to be secondary. What the Zohar Kadosh is being mevayer betuv tam v'das right here is the fact that at the beginning everything was composed of everything, and it depended on what your orientation was. So if a person was oriented towards that feminine quality within themselves, then their job was to find the masculine quality within themselves. And if they're oriented towards the masculine quality within themselves, their job is to find the feminine quality within themselves. Everything is always composed of its other part to reveal the inherent unity between the opposites, which is the secret of the transition of the limitation of the unlimited becoming the unlimited within limitation. Or phrased differently, the chelek of the nekeva in the zachar going over to the nekeva and becoming the zachar of the nekeva, and the nekeva, the chelek of the zachar that was in the nekeva, is now ascending upwards, becoming the nekeva within the zachar, which is the secret of the chiluf, that chiastic relationship where one thing gives over its opposite side to the other to create an inherent wholeness and a unity. This is the first sugya in Shas of Kriyat Shema Shel Arvis, Kriyat Shema Shel Shacharis, Kriyat Shema Shel Shacharis, and then back to Kriyat Shema Shel Arvis. It's like ABBA. And so Be'ezras Hashem, there's a shlemus from both sides. This is what's muzbar in the Torah's Chacham, in the Rashash, in the Arizal, and the Josh of Tzitzis, which is the secret of Tcheles, which is the secret of the hisklalis between Shachar and Lavan and Shachar. And so it's not only the mensch, it's not only the man who was filled with that capacity of unifying the opposites, but it was the feminine principle also that had that wholeness. Ha he nami klila min train sitron shlim bekula v'chad mistaka b'chachmas la'elu. She also was unified in the singular unity and had the capacity of looking above and below. Kivan desarach, after the chait, after the transgression, it ma'atu partsufin. The faces were diminished. The connectivity between the oppositional sides of both things was diminished, and there was no longer a capacity for them to be unified together. Shemayim and Aretz were torn asunder. The Shemayim and Aretz within the individual were torn asunder. The Chachma istali kasminei lo havi mistakel ela b'midei l'gufei. and the ability to look upwards, the ability to ascend upwards was lost from the individual, and we were left with the more natural tendency of the self, which was to be drawn down to the aretz, the mile de gufe, the matters of the body, the matters of this worldliness. And we lost our capacity to have that dual orientation to the secret of Shemayim at the very same time. We know about Shemayim, we know that there's something higher than the orientation of the materiality of this world, which remains the lot of the individual after the Chet of Adam Arishon, but we don't have a grasp of it. Shemayim appears to be rooted in a place too far for us. We don't realize that we have the ability to unify the two of them anymore. Lebasar oilid banin iloyin mitatai. Afterwards, in the hopes of a rectification, Adam and Chava, they had two children, Cain and Hevel, again representing the split. There was still a split between Shemayim and Aretz. There was still a split. Cain represented Aretz. It represented Kinyanim. It represented the acquisitional attitude of scarcity and wanting to own. Hevel represented the Shemayim, which was the tendency towards thought and the freedom of thought, and it was the tendency of powerlessness and dispossession and the secret of Hevel, Havalam, Hakol, Hevel. And because of that opposition that was still there, so that created the murder of Hevel, and it represented once again that unity between Shemayim and Aretz, that unity between Adam and Chava, that unity between Shemayim and Aretz, and the orientation above and the orientation below of powerlessness and power at the same time couldn't last. Until what? Until what happened then? Lebasar oilid banin mi'ilan v'tati. Afterwards, there was Cain and Hevel, v'loyis yashvu, and there was no unification yet. There was no full mending of that tear. Da beda be'alma ad oilid bar umine ishtalim alma v'ikra shes. It was only afterwards. It was only afterwards that Shes was born, the pillar ha'imsai, the kav ha'imsai of Shes, who unifies the two potential elements of Cain and Hevel, representing the wholeness that can potentially emerge prior to actual wholeness emerging, to reveal some semblance of unification between above and below. That was the secret of Shes. That was the secret of Shes, which is the shirish of Moshe Rabbeinu. The ha'ukma, and we've learned this already. The im kol da, but nevertheless, the unification between Shemayim and Aretz was not yet there, because Shes was still makusher to Cain and Hevel, and was still rooted in that disconnection between Shemayim and Aretz, the miyut of the partsufim. The im kol da alma tata lo ishtalim v'lo have shalim v'lo ishtachich b'kiyuma. But nevertheless, the lower world, the Aretz, the guf, the orientation of the tselem, and the demus disconnected from the tselem, and this worldly orientation devoid of our connection above, the wandering without the simcha of Tayel Lachem Began Eden, it was still not found, because Shes was not the final gushpanka. He was not going to be the stamp that revealed that inherent connectivity. Ad the Asa Avram, until it came to Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was the Ma'achid, Echad Haya Avram. Avram Avinu was Toifer, the Ichud between Shemayim and Aretz. Avram Avinu was the one who drew back down the light of Shemayim into the Aretz, and the light of Aretz back up to Shemayim. It's a secret of the Bris Milah. It's a secret of Avram Avinu, who was Mamshech Kaman the Achid Biyamina Deman de Nofil. Avram Avinu was the one who came along and helped that stumbling thing on the right side as if it was about to topple over. Avram Avinu came along and established the connectivity between Shemayim and Aretz on the right side, on the right pillar of things, meaning to say the orientation towards chesed, the orientation towards all rightness, the understanding that I have to share and I have to give forth to other people, connecting Shemayim and Aretz in that place of the right side of myself, and all of my proactivity and all of my expression outwards, to ensure that it's balanced between the lights and the vessels, not overwhelming and not underwhelming, but rather just right, in accordance with the necessity of the receiver themselves, and not, God forbid, for the sake of he who is giving over. And that's the orientation of the tzad of Avram Avinu that comes along to fix that tzad that was stumbling, that tzad that was oriented towards the chesed in the world, which was the hevel element, which was not strong enough at that point. And Avram Avinu comes along and he reestablishes the connection of Shemayim and Aretz, of being above and below, to the degree that through the light of Avram, whether I'm eating and making a bracha, or whether I'm learning Torah, I can be oriented in the depths of myself to the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what Avram Avinu came along to do, to fix that which was stumbling on the right side. Asi Yitzchak v'achik biyadei alma b'smayla v'itchaim yasir. Then Yitzchak Avinu came along and he did the very same thing on the left side, in the area of din and gvura. There was a separation between the dachar and the nukva. There was a separation between expression and receptivity. There seemed to be a machloikas. That side of Kayin, Yitzchak Avinu comes along to be ma'ached that ka'ar, to be ma'ached that kara, to sew back together that tear, to reveal that in the secret of the yichud of yira and noira, in the utilization of gvuros and the stoppage points within the self and the capacity to limit and to pivot oneself and to set firm boundaries that both on the level of Aretz and Shemayim, that's going to be unified. That's what Yitzchak Avinu does. He comes to rectify that side so that we can reconnect again to that light of Adam Arishon, which is the Shnei Partzufim, which is the ability to live with that secret of Ki Achad Shmaya Va'ara, that Tzadik Yesod Olam that comes through the Emunah to connect above and below at once. Kavan the Asa Yaakov, when Yaakov came, the Kava Emsai, the secret of Sheis, Achid Be'emsiusa Begufa. It was unified in the center point of the body of Iskal Betrain Citron, and it was unified of both sides. Shemayim and Aretz, right and left, were now sewn together through the light of Yaakov Avinu, through the light of the Kava Emsai, through the light of Shlemus. And once again, Adam Arishon came out fulfilled, and Chava came out fulfilled, and each and every human being is fulfilled through the power of the Avos HaKadoshim and through the power of the Tzadikei Yesod Olam, who give us the capacity to function with the yichud of Shemayim and Aretz, of understanding the connectivity between our experience down here and our spiritually inclined behavior, both on the right side of our lives, the chesed orientation, the expressive orientation, on the left side of our lives, on the restrictive orientation, on the concealment orientation, and in the middle points of our lives, which is the light of Yaakov Avinu. But even that, says the Zohar Kadosh, that was not enough. That was not enough, even though the world was established at that point and it was not stumbling anymore. It was not enough, because it's not enough to have only the tzaddikim, the im kol da, and nevertheless, loy ishtil, loy ishtalim, it was not fulfilled b'shayrashoy ad oile tresa shiftin v'shivin nafshas. It was only after the 12 Shvatim and the 70 Neshamos that went down to Mitzrayim were born, because the Iker Tachlis of all things is Nishmas Yisrael, is for the emergence of Klal Yisrael, for the emergence of each and every Yid, to be able to receive the Chesed, the Din, and the Rachamim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be Megale through our connection to the Avos and the Imahos, to uncover the Shleimus that exists within us, of the unification between Shemayim and Aretz, that unique possibility of being Mechaber Shemayim va'aretz. Other people can live in Shemayim, other people can live on Aretz. Only the Yid has the capacity of unifying Shemayim and Aretz. The im kol da, and even though the entire body of Klal Yisrael was fulfilled, nevertheless, loy ishtalim ad kabilu Yisrael araisa beture de Sinai. It was only when we received the Torah from Har Sinai that the fulfillment of all things came along, because that was the hamshachas hadas, that was the chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was being drawn down into our lives, the chayus amiti that can only come from the Rabbeinu Shalom, the chayus amiti that can only come from the Rabbeinu Shalom, the Chayas Amiti that can only come from the Rabbeinu Shalom, nowhere else. That is drawn down on Har Sinai, and the orientation of Har Sinai is the Turid Sinai, the Bittel and the Afra Ka'ara, and the Shiflus and the Nava of Har Sinai, the Itkim Mishkana, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Mishkan. So we had the Torah and we had the Mishkan, we had the light and the vessel in addition to all of Nishmas Yisrael, and then there was a unity finally between above and below. Kedain Itkaimu Almin V'Ishtalimu V'Itkasu Iloyin V'Tatayin. At that point, once the Torah was drawn down and once the Mishkan was built, once all of the connectivity in the world needed to be fixed was fixed, at that point there was a unification between above and below. Kiven da'iraisu mishkana utkma ba'a kutsha b'richu lemifkad. Once the Mishkan and the Torah were unified, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to look, Chayle da'araisa, the strength and the power of the Torah, Kama chaylin inan da'araisa, how powerful is the Torah, Kama chaylin inan the Mishkana, how powerful is the Torah, how powerful is the Mishkan. And we'll go weiter a little bit, Be'ezras Hashem, to the next chelek of the Zohar Kadosh on Daf Kuf Yud Ches. Ish al diglo, each one according to their flag. Ba'oisais lebeis avoisam, signs in accordance with the house of their father's house. Yachanu b'nei Yisrael, they'll rest, each one according to themselves. Rabbi Elazar Pasach, Rabbi Elazar opens his mouth, because what we just spoke about, ultimately the capacity to receive the Torah and to build the Mishkan is the secret of Yerushalayim. The Yira and the Shalom. The Yira and the Shalom. The Torah is the Yira, and the Shalom is the Mishkan. Matoivu alecha Yaakov Mishkan Yisecha Yisrael. The Mishkan is the Beis Hamikdash. That's the place of the Shalom of Yerushalayim, the Shleimus of Yerushalayim. The Yira is the Torah Hakadosh Mipi Hagvura that comes down. Be'eshu Lepidim. That's the light of the Torah Hakadosh. The unity between the Torah and the Mishkan, the unity of Yesod and Malchus, is ultimately going to be the light of Yerushalayim. It's going to be the secret of Mibein Shnei Akruvim, the unity of the two Kruvim and the empty space in between, where the Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu is Neskala, the Neshama of all of the Tzaddikim Amitim and the Beis Midrash. But ultimately, the connection between this Zohar Kadosh and the next one that we're looking at is the fact that the Torah and the Mishkan, which are necessary for the shleimus of the yichud between the Elyonim and the Tachtonim, is Niskala Dafki in Yerushalayim. The tachlis of all things is Yerushalayim, to bring everything back to Yerushalayim. to bring everything back to Yerushalayim. Everything back to Yerushalayim. Everything, all of the towns, Meron, Sfas, Tveria, Beit Shemesh, everything, Chutz La'aretz, everything coming back to Yerushalayim, to the Shirish of the Tzimtzum, to the Evan Hashasiyah, to the Shirish of the Dasa Amiti, that is the capacity of being mamtik, all of the Tzimtzumim B'Shirashim, and that's the secret of Yerushalayim, and that's the unity between the Torah and the Mishkan, between Yisod and Malchus, the ability to find a place within the desert, a prat within a klal. Ish al digloi ba'oisis lebeis avoisim yacha b'nei Yisrael. Rabbi Eliezer Pasach, the son of Rabbi Shimon, opens up his mouth and he says, Pasuk says in Yeshaya, Simchu es Yerushalayim v'gilu ba kol oyaveha. That be joyous, those in Yerushalayim, and find joy, all of those who love Yerushalayim. Kama chaviva oraisa, kama kutshaberichu. How wondrous is Yerushalayim? How wondrous is the Torah? You see, it talks about Yerushalayim, and then it speaks about the wonders of the Torah, because Yerushalayim is the yichud of the Yira and the Shleimus, the Torah and the Mishkan, and just the Mishkan of Yerushalayim is not enough. A person has to have a chabris between the Torah and the Mishkan. Kava chaviva oraisa, kama kutshaberichu. How beautiful is the Torah in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The b'chol eser demile da'iraisa ishtame. Any place that the words of Torah are going to be heard in the individual's mind through the lips of the individual. HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all of his strength and all of his soldiers and legions come along to listen to those words of Torah that are coming from above to below, drawing down below to above. Like the Balatanya says, Kriyas HaTorah is calling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by calling his name, which is the Torah HaKadosha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ais Ladari Imei. And Mamela, once a person is learning Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealed, and he comes to be dar with that person, the dira b'tachtoin mamish. Havei d'chsiv, this is what the pasuk says in Shemos, b'chol makom asher azkir at shmi v'goymer, meaning anytime my name is mentioned, I'm going to come to rest by you. And the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Torah. That's the secret of Kriyas HaTorah. Learning in Torah is calling out the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and drawing HaKadosh Baruch Hu close, because we're crying out his name. And the more times we call out his name in different ways, from this sugya and that sefer and that sefer, we're calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu more and more. B'chol kareinu a love v'loy l'midosav, directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can't go directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rather, it's a love b'derech midosav. What are the midosav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu kavyachol? That even though we can't reach the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can connect to something that Hashem revealed, and by connecting to what Hashem revealed and His essence that is revealed within there, we can connect somehow, some way to the essence of God, so to speak, which exists beyond our capacity of the mind. The secret of a love b'derech midosav to Him by way of His traits, that's the Torah HaKadosha. When a person learns the Torah, they're directly drawing down HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'lo yo'id, and not only that, ella the sanoi naflin kaime, the enemies of the individual fall in front of the individual. The ha'ukman, this has already been taught. Not only is the Torah something that illuminates the world, it's also something that extinguishes the darkness. Ta'chazi, come and see. Pekudei araisa iloyan inan la'elam. The rules, the laws of the Torah are true above, they're written above. Asi barnash va'avid pekuda chada. A person comes down and engages in a particular mitzvah of the Torah HaKadosha. Hahu pekuda kaime kutshabrichu ma'atre kaime. That mitzvah goes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That action, that rectification that we engaged with from the lowly place down here in the Aretz that seems to be devoid of the Shemayim, goes upwards to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's crowned in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Va'amma palna avedli. This individual, this anonymous individual, because it's only with the secret of anonymity, only with the secret of the bittul, of the need to have my name identified, that I'll be able to properly do a mitzvah with the bittul and my transformation itself into the mitzvah itself, as the Leshem says. The tachlis is that the person themselves should be nisapech to the mitzvah, to the point that the identity of the individual is now just anonymity. It's ploini almoini, it's a ploini, avidle, uman palna ana, begin the ihu isar leila ela. And why is it that I can be here? Why is it that this person was able to do the mitzvah to bring me about? Because the Hisayrus towards the mitzvah came from above. Kigavna di'iu asayr leila tata, just as it was oriented above, just as the mitzvah began from below, rather, just as the Hishtadlus began below, the secret of the Tzimtzum and finding Hashem from within the concealment, Tachanami itayr leila. So too it draws down that secret of the Tselem and the Tselem Eloikim, the Tselem and Demus, the fact that through our imaginations, through our ma'isa mitzvos, through our wooden swords, we have the ability of kegavna del ela misyaktim le'echad oifachi tiachadis latata b'raz de'echad. That just as we say by kegavna that Hashem is unified above, we so too unify Him below, and not only that, but by unifying Him below, we unify Him above. The Ovid Shalom La'ela, and through this a person creates a unification and a peace above, Vitacha, Vitata, and below. Kama de Itamar, as Pasuk says, Az Yechazek b'Me'oze Yasa Shalom Li, Shalom Yasa Li, that you will strengthen yourself with your strength and you will create Shalom, a dual Shalom, a Shalom for me and a Shalom for me. Yasa Shalom Li La'ela, there will be a Shalom above with the orientation above and our best spiritual desires, and Shalom Yasa Li Latata, an orientation of a peace towards the body and unification of the two of them, of the Echad Haya Avram, that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov came to sew back this split thing together to reveal the unity of both together and the miracle of being Jewish. Zaka Chulka Dahahu Barnash Da'avid Pekudei Araisa. Praiseworthy is the individual. Praiseworthy is the Chelek Eloi Kemimal, the Semech Bechelko, the Nasasa Simcha Belibi. Praiseworthy is that element when it's engaged in the mitzvos. Simchu as Yerushalayim, take joy in Yerushalayim. Begin the Chedva Lo Yishtache Chela Bezimnad Yerushalayim Kaima, the Bnei Yisrael Kaima Ba'ara Kadisha. Take joy in Yerushalayim. Why? Because the only time that chedva, the only time that true joy can be found is when Klal Yisrael, b'shoirish, b'koyach, and b'poyel are found in Ara Kadisha, in the place of Yerushalayim, in the place of the land of Eretz Yisrael. The Teman is chaberes isasa b'bala, because it's there in the land of Israel that there's a unity between the Torah and the Mishkan, between the husband and the wife, between the Zohar and the Nekeva, between the two faces of the individual. It's a neshama beguf. It's the place where the body itself can be refined to be a kli for Ruach HaKodesh mamish. Kedein hu chedvasa. It's there that the joy, the full joy, is going to be revealed. The oiz v'chedba b'munkoymoi v'titzach li'amacharon dekula chedvasa del elu l'tata. It's a joy that is above and it's a joy that is below, because the joy comes about by the combination and the connection and the impossible connection that comes about and reveals the schoik of the incongruity of the yichud between above and below. Bezimna di Yisrael lo yishtachuchu ba'ara kadisha, in a time when Klal Yisrael are not found in the Holy Land, they're not found in Yerushalayim. Asir leila barnash lemichtei la'achzei chidu. It's forbidden for an individual, it's impossible for an individual to reveal themselves in a state of joy or to show a state of full and unbridled joy. V'chsiv, Pasuk says, Simchu es Yerushalayim v'giluba, the joy of Yerushalayim and the pleasure that comes from there, v'giluba daika. It's specifically when the mind is connected to Yerushalayim, the Yerushalayim Shalamata, that's orienting us to the building of the Yerushalayim Shalamala, and the Yerushalayim Shalamala that's orienting us to the building of the Yerushalayim Shalmata. And the secret of Rav Asher Freund Schusi Aganalinu said that there was a Meshugana once running through the Shuk in Yerushalayim, screaming out, Yerushalayim Shalmata dohu Yerushalayim Shalmala, Yerushalayim Shalmala dohu Yerushalayim Shalmata, that the lower Yerushalayim is the upper Yerushalayim, and the upper Yerushalayim is the lower Yerushalayim. The Giluba Daika, specifically in that light of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Abba Chame Chad Barnash Tahave Chadi Bebe Tronya de Bavel. Rabbi Abba, this wisdom that we spoke about before, that has the capacity of drawing down the wisdom of his tzaddik Rabbi Shimon and minimizing it and being mitzamsim it so that it can be transitioned and transmitted to the next generation, to the reception of the Talmidim. Rabbi Abba Chama, Rabbi Abba came to see. Rabbi Abba saw in that light of Chochmah, Chad Barnash, there was an individual who was joyous in the law house of Bavel. Batash Bey, he encountered him strongly and intensely. Amar Simchu es Yerushalayim Ksiv. The pasuk says that a person should find joy in Yerushalayim. Bezimnad Yerushalayim b'chedva ba'i barnash lemechtei. It's only in a time that Yerushalayim is in Simcha that a person should come and be joyous. What was Rabbi Abba trying to do here? Was Rabbi Abba trying to take this person out of joy? Adarabba, Rabbi Abba was trying to put that person into a Yerushalayim mindset. And once you create the Yerushalayim mindset for the individual, even if they're in the base trying to debavel, they can uncover that Simcha of Yerushalayim. That's the secret of Rabbi Abba, was Batash Bey. Batash means a yichud of Batisha. The Arizal speaks very often about the collision of two oppositional forces, that in that collision itself, it reveals the unity. It's revealed in the Sharha Akudim explicitly, and Rav Menachem Mendel of Shvab's Chusya Ganalenu writes in numerous places that the secret of Batash, even though it appears to be a collision of an encounter, a Gevura orientation of struggle and difficulty, nevertheless, it's Roshei Tevos, Bitachon. Batash is Bitachon, Tov, and Simcha. Bitachon, Tov, and Simcha. With the light of Bitachon, Tov, and Simcha, Batash Bei Rabbi Abba, he had the ability of being Ma'ir, the spark of Yerushalayim within him, and allowing that Jew to draw the Simcha that he had in that place of Bavel into the Yerushalayim of his mind, which is dependent for a person in order to be truly Besimcha. Rabbi Eliezer, Lataime Rabbi Eliezer, in accordance to his understanding of what we've previously seen, we can understand his teaching that the simcha has to come from Yerushalayim. Why? Because Rabbi Eliezer taught something. The Amar Simchu es Yerushalayim. V'hainu dechsiv. What does Simchu es Yerushalayim mean? What does it mean to take joy in Yerushalayim? It means Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. It means to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with simcha. That's the secret of b'machshava, of that place in the mind that we can attach ourselves to. The Evan Hashasiyah can be mamtik, all dinim and all gavuros at a singular moment in the secret of an hapechu, and that's the place where the simcha comes from. And so the secret of finding joy in Yerushalayim is also the simcha of ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, of transforming this worldliness into a garden. Ksiv echad oimer ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. One pasuk says serve Hakadosh Baruch Hu in simcha. Ksiv acher, another pasuk says ivdu es Hashem b'yira. Serve Hakadosh Baruch Hu with yira and humility and a sense of bittul and a sense of deficiency. V'gilu b'ra'ada, and a person should experience some element of joy, but specifically within the powerlessness and the overpowering sense of that inner concern at the heart of the experience. Ma ben hai lahai, what's the distinction between these two things? How do we acknowledge this discrepancy in the verse? Ella kan bezimna di Yisrael sharon ba'ara kadisha, kan bezimna di Yisrael sharon ba'ara achra. This is simple. When Klal Yisrael find themselves in Yerushalayim, when the mind is attached to Yerushalayim, then a person is in the mindset of Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, a person through the lens of Yerushalayim, ulirois b'toiv Yerushalayim, to see the goodness of Yerushalayim, to see the connectivity of all things that comes about at that Evan Hashasiyah, that place with the Ara and the Shmaya are menashek each other, the kiss between Shemayim and Aretz, the secret of the Etzem Haluz of Yerushalayim, the Koitel Ma'aravi, which never goes away, that Chibur HaMemutza Mechaber between the Elyonim and the Tachtonim. Once a person is connected to that place in the Toy Yerushalayim, in that place of Harazei Samar Menuchos, Koitel Ma'aravi, Beis Medrash, Nikra Meshem Atzadik, when a person is oriented to those places, then it's a secret of Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. But when a person is in a state of exile and not connected to the mind of Eretz Yisrael, not connected to the land of Eretz Yisrael, not being mechaber Torah and Mishkan, not being makasher everything that a person does to Yerushalayim, as Rabbi Nachman says, Kol makom shani holech ani holech rak la'Eretz Yisrael, that any place that I go, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael. That one who is born there and one who yearns for its salvation, both are going to benefit from the redemption of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a place dependent on actual place, but until it's an actual place for a person, then it has to be a mindset for the individual. And it's only through the mindset that a person will actually come to making it a real place. And so when a person has a connectivity to Yerushalayim, that's where the simcha comes from. But when a person is in Golus, when a person is not connected, that's going to be the secret of Ivdu es Hashem be'yira, of the softening of the joy. Kan bezimna di Yisrael shayim ba'ari acha Ivdu es Hashem be'yira. What does it mean to serve Hashem with concern, with fear? Da Knesset Yisrael bezimna di ihu begalusa beinei amamei. This is when Klal Yisrael find themselves lost amongst the nations of the world. Rabbi Yehuda comes along. Malchus comes along and says, wait a second. You're going to tell me that we can only be besimcha. We can only be besimcha when redemption has arrived. How are we going to get to redemption? We can't get to redemption without simcha. Zak Rabbi Yehuda, Zak the secret of Malchus, which understands the survival mechanism necessary of making oneself happy, even if Yerushalayim is not built. Haksiv, Pasuk says, Ki besimcha teitzeyu, but they're going to leave with joy, meaning when you're leaving something, so you're already still in that place that you're stuck in, and we see that they have joy there. So how could it be that they have joy if they haven't left yet? V'dahi Knesset Yisrael. This is Knesset Yisrael. Kivan the Amr Teitzu min Galusahi. No, it's only because we were told that we were going to leave exile. That's where the simcha comes from, the ikre simcha, and that's where simcha comes from. So it's not real simcha that they experienced in Galus, but rather it was the awareness that the simcha was going to come, which was enough to get them out of exile. Amr le vadai hachihu. This is exactly what it was. B'chol zimna di'u b'galusa b'shchiva la'afra. Because as long as a person is in exile and they're stuck in the dust, lo ikre simcha adukut. And a person can only find simcha when a Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to them and lifts them up from the dust and says and whispers into their ear that you should lift yourself up from the dust. So Rabbi Yehuda is being megala a profound secret here. We see a stira. I can only be fully happy when Yerushalayim is built. But you see that I have to be happy in order to leave exile so that Yerushalayim can be built. That simcha is not a simcha of having left Yerushalayim. That simcha is the simcha of the anticipation of leaving Yerushalayim. This is a svara we've seen in the Zohar Kadosh before with Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu didn't have Ruach HaKodesh, calls man that he was by Lavan, but we see that he had a Ruach HaKodesh to leave Lavan. Elama, once a person is already oriented towards the process of leaving a place, it's as if they're already outside of the place. So the laws that apply to being stuck in a certain place no longer apply when a person is yearning and desiring to get out of that place. And Rabbi Yehuda, the secret of Malchus, the secret of survival, comes to reveal the secondary level of joy that we can experience even prior to the building of Yerushalayim. Because even in Yerushalayim, a person is still saying Lashon Haba Yerushalayim. And Zak the Seir Kadosh, and that will only come about when a Kadosh Baruch Hu whispers to a person, Hisnari me afar kumi. But again, that happens, that whisper comes to an individual when they're still in exile. When we're still in exile, we hear that whisper, that loving whisper of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hisnari me afar kumi. Kumi uri, kumi uri, kumi uri. v'yischabrun kechada, and unify as one. Unify above and below as one. Kedein chedvasa ikri. That's the true joy. The chedvasa, the joke that comes about, the ridiculous, impossible, radical nature, the impossibility of the connection between above and below. Chedvasa dekula kedein besimcha tetzeyuvada. This is the joy of all things, and it's specifically there when that simcha arrives that a person will most certainly go out. Vadai, with certainty, incertainty. It is certain. Kedein kaima chaylin yafkun lekable dematranusa lechedvasa dehilula demalka. At that point, all of the soldiers come out, all of the forces of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's forces come out, and they prepare the bride, they prepare Knesset Yisrael for the joy of the wedding celebration. Keda amart, heharim v'hagvaos, the avos and the imos, yiptzuchu, svaseichem berina, they're going to come, they help us along, the siv ki halach lefanechem Hashem u'ma'asvechem, that Hashem is going to go ahead of you and connect you. We should be zocheh to live, to taste the sweet light of the Zohar Kadosh, to taste the light of the Zohar Kadosh, Midbar Matana, a gift that comes from the Midbar itself. The place of the Midbar is the place of revelation. It's the place of Matan Torah, but it's only for a person who makes themselves like a Midbar, a person who recognizes the radical need of finding Simcha down here through the bittul, through the connectivity of above and below, where when I make myself more and more invisible, so the distinction between above and below stops being so real. Most of the real distinctions come about as a result of the thickening of my ego grasp on this world. And when I soften the intensity of my self-assertion and my self-reflection and my self-obsession, so then those partitions begin to weaken, and there begin to be openings in the air that we can draw down that light of above to below and below back up above. Be'ezus Hashem.